Hello everybody, welcome to my channel.
Ava Gardner, 1922 to 1990, was one of Hollywood's most iconic and enigmatic stars, renowned for her smoldering beauty, fiery spirit, and magnetic screen presence. Born on December 24, 1922, in Grabtown, North Carolina, Gardner rose from humble, rural beginnings to become a symbol of classic Hollywood glamour. Rise to fame. Ava's entrance into the film industry was almost accidental. A portrait taken by her brother-in-law caught the attention of MGM talent scouts, and she signed a contract with the studio in 1941. For several years, she played minor or decorative roles, her southern accent and inexperience keeping her from top billing. Her breakthrough came with The Killers, 1946, opposite Burt Lancaster, as the sultry femme fatale Kitty Collins. She captivated audiences and critics alike, establishing herself as a major star. Hollywood stardom throughout the 1940s and 1950s. Gardner starred in a string of successful films that showcased both her beauty and growing acting range. Highlights include The Hucksters, 1947, Showboat, 1951, where she played Julie, a tragic figure whose mixed racial heritage forces her into exile. Magambo, 1953, a role that earned her an Academy Award nomination for Best Actress. The Barefoot Contessa, 1954, perhaps her most iconic role, playing a Spanish dancer turned Hollywood star whose life mirrors Gardner's own in many ways. Personal life and mythos. Gardner's personal life was as famously turbulent as her screen roles. She was married 3 times, most notably to Mickey Rooney, Artie Shaw, and Frank Sinatra. Her relationship with Sinatra was especially passionate and stormy, and although their marriage ended in divorce, she considered him the love of her life. Known for her independence and candor, Gardner resisted being molded by the Hollywood system. She drank, smoked, cursed, and lived as freely as many of her male counterparts, earning admiration and criticism in equal measure. She was close friends with writers, artists, and bohemians, and she often felt more at ease outside the confines of stardom. Later years disillusioned with Hollywood, Gardner moved to Spain and later London, where she lived much of her later life in relative privacy. She continued to act occasionally, taking roles in films such as The Night of the Iguana, 1964, and Earthquake, 1974, and later appeared in TV miniseries like The Long, Hot Summer, 1985. In 1989, she published her memoir, Ava, My Story, offering a raw and unfiltered glimpse into her life, loves, and regrets. Legacy. Ava Gardner remains a symbol of old Hollywood allure, an actress whose natural charisma often eclipsed her scripts, and whose real life was as compelling as any movie. Her star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame and a museum in her hometown of Smithfield, North Carolina, are lasting tributes to her cultural impact. She once famously said, "I either write the book or sell the jewels. I'm kinda sentimental about the jewels." That blend of wit, defiance, and mystique continues to define her legacy. Early life and roots. Ava Lavinia Gardner was the youngest of 7 children born to poor tobacco farmers in Grabtown, a small rural community in North Carolina. Her family struggled financially, especially after the death of her father when Ava was just 15. She attended secretarial school in Wilson, North Carolina, before a visit to her sister in New York changed the trajectory of her life. A photograph displayed in a Fifth Avenue studio caught the attention of MGM talent scout Barnard Doohan, who said simply, "She can't sing. She can't act. She's terrific." That paradox, her raw, natural allure in contrast with Hollywood's polished demands, would come to define Gardner's unique position in cinema. Hollywood image and artistic growth. Initially, MGM didn't quite know what to do with her. She appeared in more than a dozen minor roles in the early 1940s, often uncredited, before gaining the confidence and experience to match her striking presence. Gardner was never a classically trained actress, but she developed a quiet, intense acting style that made her ideal for complex, moody roles. Her best performances came when directors allowed her to blend personal vulnerability with on-screen toughness. Her presence in Magambo, alongside Clark Gable and Grace Kelly, earned her not only an Oscar nomination, but the respect of critics who had previously dismissed her as just a beautiful face. In The Barefoot Contessa, she gave arguably her most personal performance, playing a mysterious, misunderstood star from humble beginnings, manipulated by the industry and undone by love. The film, co-starring Humphrey Bogart and directed by Joseph L. Mankiewicz, remains a quintessential portrait of 1950s Hollywood cynicism. Love affairs and scandal. Gardner's romantic life drew as much attention as her acting. Her marriages to Mickey Rooney, 1942-1943, and Artie Shaw, 1945-1946, were short-lived, and both men were said to be controlling and critical. Her third marriage, to Frank Sinatra in 1951, was a seismic event in celebrity culture. Their volatile relationship was tabloid gold, passionate, dramatic, often destructive. It was Gardner who helped revive Sinatra's flagging career by lobbying for him to get the role of Maggio in From Here to Eternity, a performance that won him an Academy Award. Despite their mutual love, the relationship ended in 1957. Yet they remained emotionally tethered for decades. Gardner kept letters and photographs, and Sinatra reportedly never stopped loving her. She also had affairs with some of the 20th century's most powerful men: Howard Hughes, Ernest Hemingway, George C. Scott, and was rumored to have once said, "I'm the world's greatest sinner, but I do hope God loves me." Life abroad and disillusionment with Hollywood. In the late 1950s, Gardner left the United States, first moving to Spain and then to London. She felt stifled by Hollywood's studio system and was drawn to the freer, more passionate cultures of Europe. In Spain, she embraced flamenco, bullfighting, and a bohemian circle of friends that included writers and artists. Her close friendship with Ernest Hemingway, with whom she shared a deep affinity for risk, truth, and alcohol, was particularly significant. She starred in adaptations of two of his works, The Snows of Kilimanjaro and The Sun Also Rises, and he called her the most beautiful animal he had ever seen. By the 1960s and 70s, her acting roles grew more sporadic, often cast for her name and aura rather than substantial parts. Yet she delivered dignified, mature performances in The Night of the Iguana, 1964, and The Life and Times of Judge Roy Bean, 1972. Health issues, including a series of strokes in the 1980s, slowed her down considerably. Final years and memoir. Ava lived her final years in London, in a modest apartment with a housekeeper and her beloved dog. She declined public appearances and interviews but remained sharp and dignified. In 1989, with the help of ghostwriter Peter Evans, she published her autobiography, Ava, My Story. The book was unflinchingly honest, raw, and often self-deprecating. She confronted her insecurities, relationships, and regrets with remarkable candor. She died on January 25, 1990, at age 67. From complications of pneumonia, leaving behind a legacy of unforgettable beauty and resilient independence. Legacy and cultural impact. Ava Gardner's legacy is more than her roles, it is her attitude. She broke boundaries, challenged norms, and refused to be boxed into the starlet mold. She was not a product of the system, she fought against it. Her honesty, her earthiness, And her refusal to hide her flaws make her an enduring icon not just of Hollywood glamour, but of authenticity. Gardner once said, "Deep down, I'm pretty superficial." It was a typical Ava line, dry, ironic, and layered with truth and deflection. But in reality, she was one of the most complex, misunderstood, and genuinely human stars of Hollywood's golden age. The woman behind the myth Ava Gardner's story is not just one of stardom, but of resistance to being defined. She was a woman of paradoxes, at once ethereal and earthy, vulnerable and defiant. Glamorous and grounded, she detested being typecast and often rejected the trappings of fame. Though MGM crafted her image as a sensual siren, Ava never liked being called a sex symbol. She once remarked, "I have only one rule in acting: trust the director and give him heart and soul." She gave both in full measure, but only on her terms. This defiance earned her a reputation for being difficult, though in reality, she was simply unwilling to sacrifice her dignity. Movie camera: the art of understatement. Unlike many stars of her era, Ava didn't rely on theatricality or vocal bravado. Her performances were often subtle, relying on gesture, silence, and expressive eyes. That restraint created mystery. In Pandora and the Flying Dutchman, 1951, she plays a woman who entrances every man she meets, but her performance is melancholic rather than seductive. The film, shot in Technicolor in Spain, is arguably one of her most visually haunting roles, her vulnerability simmering under the surface. In The Night of the Iguana, 1964, she plays Maxine Falk, a brash hotel owner in Mexico. With rugged humanity and weary charm. Opposite Richard Burton and Deborah Kerr, Ava brings a rawness that feels emotionally lived in, likely because, by then, she had felt the full weight of love, loss, and exile. Tumbler glass Ava the realist, hard-living, soft-heart Ava drank heavily. She swore. She danced until sunrise in flamenco bars. But behind the hard-living legend was someone who felt deeply. She was haunted by miscarriages, especially during her marriage to Sinatra, by betrayals, and by the gap between who she was and what Hollywood wanted her to be. She often claimed she wasn't intelligent, but that was false humility. She read voraciously, loved poetry, and could quote Hemingway and Shakespeare in the same breath. She befriended artists, matadors, and writers, not the studio elite. Her circle was rebellious, creative, and sincere, like she was. "I was never in control of my career, my life, or my image. But I never sold my soul." Heartbreak Frank Sinatra. The love story that never ended. Though married for just 6 tempestuous years, Ava and Frank's relationship was lifelong in spirit. They hurt each other, publicly and privately, but never truly let go. Ava once said of Sinatra, "We had something between us that neither of us could explain. That's why we kept destroying each other." After their divorce, she kept his picture by her bed. When Ava had her stroke in 1986 and was bedridden in London, it was Sinatra who paid her medical bills, anonymously. She knew, of course. She always knew. Classical building legacy. Beyond the screen. Though she was nominated for only one Academy Award, Ava Gardner's reputation has grown with time. She's now seen as a proto-feminist figure, an actress who refused to conform, who owned her life and mistakes, and who remained authentic even when it hurt her career. Today, the Ava Gardner Museum in Smithfield, North Carolina, stands as a tribute to her life, not as an idealized starlet, but as a woman of grit and complexity. It includes rare photos, letters, wardrobe pieces, and artifacts from her time in Hollywood and Spain. Modern actresses, from Angelina Jolie to Penelope Cruz, have cited Ava as an inspiration, not just for her looks, but for her ferocity and freedom. Scroll notable quotes. Ava in her own words, "I couldn't imagine a more hellish life than marrying a movie star. What I'd really like to say about stardom is that it gave me everything I never wanted. I always felt that I was a woman's woman much more than a man's. It's not that I don't like people. It's just that I like being alone. A lot." Film Frames selected film highlights: The Killers, 1946, her breakout, mysterious, dangerous, unforgettable. Showboat, 1951, dubbed for singing, but deeply moving. Magambo, 1953, Oscar-nominated, chemistry with Gable crackles. The Barefoot Contessa, 1954, the Ava myth in fictional form. The Night of the Iguana, 1964, mature, layered, and unsentimental. Tam Lin, 1970, her only horror fantasy role, often overlooked, now a cult favorite. Shooting star Ava's enduring aura. Ava Gardner didn't belong to any one era. She was a creature of instinct, of rebellion, of truth. Even when the system tried to polish her edges, she stayed jagged, and that's what made her unforgettable. More than 30 years after her death, she remains one of Hollywood's most enigmatic figures. Not because she played a goddess on screen, but because she lived like a real woman, imperfect, bold, and unrepentantly herself. Ava's philosophy: beauty, truth, and sorrow. Though remembered for her face, Ava Gardner's mind and worldview were far more compelling. Beneath the glossy MGM image lay a woman who rejected illusions and longed for truth, even when it was bitter. She was deeply fatalistic. Her Southern upbringing in the wake of the Depression instilled in her a belief that life could turn cruelly, quickly. That fatalism was reflected in her film choices and personal quotes. "I have never been afraid of anything, not even death. It's living that sometimes terrifies me." She was spiritual but not conventionally religious. She had a reverence for beauty, nature, and art, and an artist's allergy to hypocrisy. Her favorite writers included Hemingway, Tennessee Williams, and D.H. Lawrence. She liked characters who were wounded and searching, like her. Globe exile and belonging. Spain and London. Ava's self-imposed exile to Spain in the 1950s was more than an escape from the paparazzi, it was a cultural awakening. "Spain," in her words, "made sense to me. It was a country of passion and music and blood." There, she immersed herself in flamenco, bullfighting, poetry, and long, wine-soaked dinners. She found a mirror of herself in the toreros, proud, lonely figures dancing with death. She also felt less judged in Europe. In the US, especially during the McCarthy era, her progressive views, independent lifestyle, and association with leftist artists made her a target. Spain offered a form of anonymity, until even that became impossible. Later, in London, she lived quietly. Neighbors saw her walking her dog, chain smoking, sipping gin at Claridge's. She wasn't trying to reclaim youth or fame. She had made peace with the past, mostly. Orange Heart friendships. The real Ava circle. Ava's friendships tell us more about her than any headline. Ernest Hemingway. They understood each other's demons. They drank together, argued, hunted, read poetry. He called her his beautiful drunken sister. Grace Kelly. Ava respected Grace's composure, though they were opposites. Ava once joked that Grace was so ladylike I felt like a pirate. Howard Hughes. A long, complicated relationship, possessive, manipulative, at times violent. Ava saw through Hughes's facade and pushed back. He tried to control her, she laughed in his face. Frank Sinatra. Beyond romance, they had a shared sense of outsiderhood. Both were moody, mercurial, and too sensitive for the Hollywood machine. They were never quite over each other. Unlike many stars, Ava preferred the company of musicians, dancers, and writers, people who lived by instinct. Face mask iconography. The myth of Ava Gardner transcended movie star status. She became an icon in the mythological sense, an enduring image of freedom, sorrow, sensuality, and rebellion. Her influence threads through pop culture, literature. Norman Mailer, Jack Kerouac, and Joan Didion referenced her as the archetype of doomed beauty. Fashion. Designers still cite her look, sleek gowns, bold lipstick, and an untamed glamour. Cinema. Ava's persona paved the way for anti-heroines, women who are beautiful but damaged, feminine yet unsentimental. There is no happy ending in the Ava Gardner myth. And that's precisely why she still matters. Her
Bye bye. Thanks for watching.